We are standing at the former location of the Snyder Run Y, and a Y is a word, a three-letter word, spelled W-Y-E, that's derived from the letter of the same name, and it's a piece of railroad track infrastructure on which locomotives or trains can be turned. It's just like pulling into somebody's driveway to go in, back out, and go back the way you came. A railroad Y works much the same way. You have a pair of switches, look like letter Y's, that are opposite one another, and then a third one opposite those two. It makes basically a three-point turn in the railroad track. So a locomotive or a train can pull up one leg, back down the second leg, and then pull forward on the third leg to go back out the way in the direction from which it came. That was handy here in Thomas, or here in the Thomas, Coketon, Douglas area, because loaded coal trains coming up the Blackwater Canyon were long and heavy, and this grade was particularly steep. The Western Maryland Railway and its predecessor, the West Virginia Central and Pittsburgh, had what would in a typical circumstance be pretty powerful locomotives, but even those locomotives on this grade were limited in their capacity. So a locomotive coming uphill might only be good for 10 cars, where it might be able to pull 40, 50, or even more than that on more level track territory. So a coal train coming up the mountain here might have 8, 9, even sometimes 10 locomotives spread throughout the train. Normally, to turn a locomotive, a railroad would use something called a turntable, which looks like kind of like a bridge. It's a pair of girders set on a center pivot in the middle of a circular concrete or masonry pit. And the locomotive can pull out on that turntable. The turntable has a motor that allows it to spin in either direction, and the turntable operator can point that locomotive in whatever direction it needs to be pointed in to do whatever it's going to be doing next. But a typical turntable could only accommodate one locomotive at a time, and if you've got a train coming uphill that has the helper engines removed and need to be sent back down to the bottom of the hill at Hendricks for their next assignment, turning those locomotives one at a time would have been a time-consuming process. And there was a time when there was a turntable at the Thomas engine house, but over time it became apparent that there was a more efficient way to do things, and so several locomotives at a time could be turned on the Y here. Now this Y had a dual function. It was also the starting point for a branch line that went up the hollow and over the hill to another mine or set of mines in the next little valley. And there were lots and lots of little branch lines coming off of the main line of the railroad in and around Thomas and its neighboring communities that brought coal from the mines to the yard in Thomas, where carloads of coal could be made up into longer trains to be sent out to market, whether that would be the steel mills at Pittsburgh and Baltimore, or to the ports of Baltimore and the Great Lakes, and as well as other locations too. So that's basically the function of the Snyder Run Y here, and it's still pretty apparent how it was laid out. Directly behind me is a culvert that carries one leg of the Y across Snyder Run, which was the watercourse that the railroad followed to get of that mine branch. The second leg is off to my right, your left, and we're standing here on part of the bank, the main track between Hendricks and Thomas, once occupied.